Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett. How are your allergies doing right now, Steve?
My allergies suck, Michelle. I feel like I'm all gravelly and nothing makes sense coming out of my mouth. Like,
I feel like every time I eat something nowadays, my nose just runs. I don't know why, but it's the mold. But we're getting cooler weather.
Cooler,
right?
yeah.
It's really nice. And most people who have moved in from out of state, they're used to either like 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons. Well, Texas has 12 seasons. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So
Can you name them all?
I'll name them. So we have winter, we have full spring, we have second winter, then we have the spring of deception, then we have the third winter, then we have the pollinating, but that kind of happens like twice a year too. We have the actual spring, which it's about like 2 weeks basically. Summer, Hell's front porch.
Yes, yeah, which goes from like July to September.
Give or take, yeah. Right now we're in what we call false fall.
False fall, that's right, because we're going to have another 100-degree day here pretty quick.
Then that goes into second summer.
Yep.
And then you have actual fall.
Yeah.
So
which lasts what? Like 48 to 72 hours?
Give or
something
take.
Like that?
Give or take. And then you have, now we have a new one. It's like Snowmageddon, right?
Snowmageddon, that's right. Yeah.
I guess they're predicting that to happen again this year.
I actually liked it. It was kind of fun. I mean, I hope nobody loses their power and freezes to death in their homes or anything, but it was kind of nice though.
I hope you don't freeze to death, but I like it.
The internet was down for 5 days, remember? So we were playing games and, going back to the
Although
old
if I had to play another game of dominoes, I was going to choke everybody out.
Yeah, I know. So, we played Rummy Cube like 57 times.
Rummy Cube?
Rummy Cube.
Don't know it.
Yeah. And Michelle Lewis. Hey, Michelle, remember when phoning it in was a euphemism for being really crappy at your job?
Uh-huh.
Now we have a whole generation of people phoning it in every day on Zoom.
Yeah, they
don't want to go to work in an office.
Or they call it quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting?
Yeah, where it's like, have you heard that term?
I have, yeah.
But I was messing around with my computer today and I was taking off, what was I taking off? Acrobat, because it slows my computer down. And I looked, when was the last time you were using certain applications? And it was Zoom of 2021. I was like, I haven't used Zoom all year.
Lucky you.
I know.
Yeah. It is nice, occasionally for like a 10-minute meeting where you'd rather do it in person, like see somebody, but no. Remember we were doing them for hours sitting there looking at the screen.
I know. Or we were playing games or you'd have happy hour on. It was pretty fun.
Oh, that's right. We did a couple of those too, birthday parties and things.
Birthday parties. So this Friday.
Guest.
Oh, yeah,
Don't forget the guest.
Oh, guest. We have Chrystal Smith coming up.
From Foster Village.
Yeah, we're very excited to have her on and hear about her gifts and her ministry that she...
It's a big one.
It's been a wonderful thing for the community of Dripping Springs, but also Hays County too. And I guess there's several offshoots of their idea and what they have done across the country. So I'm really looking
forward to that too. I think it's going to be great to have her in here.
Well, like I said, this Friday is a big game in Dripping Springs. It'll pass by the time this airs,
That's right.
But it's Dripping Springs against Westlake. I think all tickets are sold out already. You saw me this morning. I was on early trying to get my tickets.
And you did.
I got my tickets and I asked Kendall, who was a varsity Dripping Springs cheerleader? Okay. I said, Kendall, I would like you and Jacob to go to the football game with us. Why would we go to a football game? That's stupid. I said, Kendall, why wouldn't...
She's moved on, Michelle.
I know.
She's past that life.
She goes, I'm not a teenager anymore. And I said, but you went to the pumpkin patch this weekend and you are not a kid either.
Did she sit amongst the pumpkins and take pictures?
Oh, she sent me videos of her at the petting zoo.
Boy.
So apparently there was a kangaroo there. But that led me to something that I thought, because I know you guys have chickens.
We do.
And
Peanut Butter and Penelope. Shout out to Peanut Butter and Penelope.
Oh, hey, Peanut Butter and Penelope, you're delicious.
No. Oh my God, I got to edit that out.
Okay, no. Okay, so
they're family.
I haven't nibbled on them, so I don't know if they're delicious or not. They may be.
They're actually
sassy and tarty.
One of the best parts of my day is walking out in the morning when it's hot to put out ice for them, and I go, "Good morning, ladies," and they always give me that side-eyed look. Good morning, ladies.
So, have you heard of chicken-o'-lantern?
No.
So you get a pumpkin. Okay, here's the steps. You get a pumpkin. You have to take out the seeds just like you would the seeds in the pulp.
Yeah.
You save the seeds in the pulp because it's really good for the chickens,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And you start whatever design you want. You don't go all the way through. You take like a potato peeler and you start it on the front of the on the pumpkin, and the chickens will peck
through
the
it.
rest of it out.
That's brilliant.
And then you get one of those, what are those glow sticks?
Yeah.
And you can stick it back there.
Holly and I are going to do that for sure.
So I want you to do it. I want you to do a video and we'll post it.
I'd love to do it. Yeah, we're definitely going to do that.
Okay.
I was thinking of a reason to go get a pumpkin. There, that's it right there. So do you celebrate Halloween much?
Yeah, I do. I turn all the lights off and we go hide in the back.
Oh, you're one of those.
Well, no. See, when we had kids at home, we used to do all out. We were the house. We had, we would take our porte-cochere and we would turn it into a haunted house. And I mean, I would have the block party.
You went all in.
All the way in. Now I hide.
Yeah. Well, that's what we don't have anywhere where we live anyway. There's no kids in our neighborhood, but I was reading some stuff about Halloween candy and how much money spent on Halloween. Overall on Halloween, $10.6 billion is spent on Halloween.
On candy?
No, that's decorations, the whole bit. Which, by the way, Belterra has the best decorations. When I was running over there this morning, there about every other yard has a whole full yard of decorations.
The best decorations are across from your rental house in Howard Ranch. The garden home.
Oh, really?
It is
the
cutest thing. She has like skeletons coming out.
It's that's
so
right.
adorable.
Yeah, in the cottages. Yeah. So $3.18 billion spent on candy. That's crazy.
I don't like candy that much.
Yeah, I do.
I like Mexican candy.
No, I don't like
Mexican I like candy. It because it's like savory.
172 million Americans celebrate Halloween. And they spend about $27.55 on average for Halloween, which,
You know what I did when I was a kid? It's like you would never even guess when I lived in the valley what we would do for Halloween. Not hoarded.
Candy.
Well, first off, I always was the one that would stay in the house and pass out candy. But my friends, they were Mexican, so we would go visit their relatives in the cemeteries, and they would have barbecues and Dia de los Muertos and put candles and things like that. And I thought it was the coolest thing.
Oh, really?
I hated trick-or-treating. I would rather go hang out in the cemetery.
I liked twickle tweeting until up until I was probably
last
8
week.
or 9. Yeah, until last week. Yeah,
you still trick-or-treat in the
you
office
look a little
candy.
big. No, really. I'm young at heart. Over 50% of parents stash some Halloween candy to enjoy later in the year.
Yeah, I could see that.
Do you know what some of the top 10 favorite Halloween candies are?
Oh, gosh. Hershey's, of course. I would think Skittles.
Hershey's Kisses is 7. Skittles is 2. M&M's are 3. Starburst is 4. Hot Tamales. Number 5. Sour Patch Kids, number 6. We said Hershey's Kisses at 7. Snickers at 8. Tootsie Pops at 9. I like those.
What was number 1?
Candy corn is number 10. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
Oh, so you know what I give out? If I'm not hiding, I go buy bags of chips or corn nuts or like individual cookies, and I hand out full bags.
Oh, you're the one where when the kids get home, their mom says, "Don't eat those. They might be razor blades in them."
Yeah, probably.
So that's the top 10 overall in the country. So our nemesis in California, they're 1, 2, and 3
granola, pine nuts.
No, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups is number 1. M&M's are number 2, and
Bean
Skittles
sprouts.
is number 3.
Bean sprouts.
Yeah. Do you know what the number 1 is in Texas? I didn't think this would be right.
What's that?
Starburst.
Oh, that's a filling.
I know.
Puller outer.
That's like the ones you get at the bottom of your bag. You go, I got a couple Starburst. But Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are number 2. And then Sour Patch Kids.
You know I don't
3.
like peanut butter, but I will eat me a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup every now and then.
That's because it's not really peanut butter. I like Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
Yeah, I'm not a big peanut butter fan. Peanut butter fan.
Shred Day. We talked a couple weeks ago about Shred Day.
Yes.
I know. Unfortunately, we had to cancel it.
I know. I'm very sad about it because I loved that community outreach, but just right now it wasn't in the cards with everything that's going on.
It's too much going on.
And so we apologize. I understand that possibly the high school wrestling team may be doing it again. So if we get some more
information,
it won't be as good
as ours, but
of course it won't. But to all of our former and past
We may,
participants.
I think we'll probably bring it back next year. There was like this culmination of all these events coming in the middle of October, and I could not see us pulling it off with any success.
No, and you have Run by the Creek coming like 2 weeks. 3
Yeah,
weeks
Run by the
that,
Creek is November 13th, so I'm gearing up for that. And then, like you said, the short-term rental. And then on the side, we have this full-time real estate business that we do.
Oh, we sell real estate?
Yeah, we sell real estate.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine that. So, we're just talking about California, our nemesis in California. Everybody is trying to get out of California. Everybody, including the animals from the zoo.
What?
Seriously, Josephine, an armadillo in the Sacramento Zoo, was found. She escaped, and she was found running down the road with a bumper sticker on her behind saying Amarillo or bust. She was trying to get out of Dodge.
Well, I think we found her because she's been in our front yard. And Todd just put out.
No, they got her back. She's back in the Sacramento
No, well,
Zoo.
she either procreated or something because our yard is being torn to hell. So now
you had this. You said you had the answer. You got the electric wire.
He put it back out this weekend.
Well, that's good. Yeah, you can't take it down. They come right back.
I know. Well, I don't know. I hate those.
What's how much is Tate paying for gas in San Francisco right now?
I think the last time he said it was almost $8 a gallon.
Let that sink in, people. $8 per gallon of gasoline in your car.
And he has to go over the Golden Gate Bridge a lot, but they live in the Palisades area, but where he has to work is at the airport. That's where the Coast Guard Air Station is, is at the airport. So it doesn't have to go, but I mean, it's crazy. I think when you go over the Golden Gate Bridge, I can't remember what he said, how much it was. I want to say it was like $12 or $15. I don't know. Anyways, it was crazy. It was a crazy amount to go over one way.
I don't know how
back.
people afford to live there. You've got to make a huge amount of money just to afford to live there.
Good thing he's military and he has base allowance housing.
Well, yeah, but it seems like there's the uber wealthy people, the people making $1 million a year.
And then people like Tate and Maddie that live over a Chinese food restaurant
exactly
and pay
like
$4,800 a month.
Really? For an apartment.
Uh-huh.
And they're probably happy to get it.
Well, they were very happy. And they can see the Golden Gate Bridge if you squeeze and you look out
way
the bathroom.
Out on the balcony with one eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it seems like there's a gap of like the middle class folks because they can't afford to live there. They don't make enough money. And then there's sort of like the people that don't have any choice except for to put up with these terrible policies that the state of California is imposing on them. And they have to stay, right? They don't have the money to pick up and move to Texas or Florida or a better state or Colorado, some other place that's much better place to live.
That seems to be the West Coast of the United States, like in general. But I have to say I have some good news out of the Northwest area.
Oh, love to hear it.
And I think I don't know if you know this story or not, but out of Portland, Oregon, there's a coach by the name of Coach Balto. And he has created something called Coach Balto's Bike Bus. And it's out of Portland. He was famously known for taking a cardboard cutout of Tom Brady to help stop traffic so the kids could walk across the street safely. So in 2018, he started what he called a walking school bus, and it was a safer way for kids to get to school. It was intended for those that didn't qualify for the school bus, that parents that couldn't or wouldn't drive their kids, or just generally for kids that were walking on their own. And it was a safety concern. I don't know if you remember or not, but there's a lot going on in Portland, Oregon
I've
around
been
that
there
time.
this summer twice, and it's terrible.
So what it has evolved, he's a TikTok, like just crazy sensation. He's a PE teacher at one of the schools there, and he came up with a fun and safe and healthy way for these kids and their parents to get to school. He started out with 70 kids, and right now there's up to 200 children and parents, and not including the parents, and it's helping the chaotic drop-off, pick-up
so
process.
Does he walk through their neighborhood
So
and
it was it was walking. No, he's on his bike. He's at the start of the group.
Okay.
And all of these kids, they meet up on each block, and I think on each block he meets up, and it's just, I'll show you the video, but it's just this amazing feel-good story where he's just taking all of these kids, and he has helpers
to make sure there's no stragglers or somebody
or larger intersections and stuff like that. And, I just thought, with all of the bus issues, the staffing issues that we have with DSISD, the traffic issues we have. Now, granted, our high schools are very, our high school is very far from the majority of the people that go to the high school. But within the elementary school, sometimes it has taken me 45 minutes to get to work.
I know.
Crazy. It's taken me 20 to 30 minutes to get from the entrance of High Point out to 290, which down Sawyer Ranch.
Which you could walk that faster than
you could
that.
walk that. Well, not that I would, but we would just say, actually I did in Snowmageddon, but I can tell you about that. But if you wanted to start your own bike bus, which is this is such a great idea. People are starting this throughout the country. Maybe it's a coach at the school, maybe it's a parent, maybe in High Point or Belterra or Headwaters.
Well, you could do it in High Point and Belterra.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can't do it anywhere else.
No, you couldn't do it.
There is not a bike lane or bike path anywhere else except for in Belterra.
Yeah, it's not really
Calaterra, but
right?
There's no campuses there. So
you just need to find your why, right? Why do you want to do this? You got to build your team, and building your team, just like anything else, you need to have some responsible adults or people that are going to show up. You need to set up your route along with your helpers, and then you just spread the word. And I just thought it was such a feel good. We hear so much junk and crud that comes out of Oregon and that kind of side of the country. And this, way to go. Kudos, Coach
That's
Balto.
a great story. And it doesn't take, you don't have to be a genius to put that together. You just got to have a good heart and good intentions.
It's getting kids outside.
And
they're not on their phone. They're not playing games. When you see these videos of these kids laughing and joking, and people are doing drones and flying them over.
But riding a bike is a great way to get a little exercise. You get out there, enjoy the day, and you can't look at your phone. You're going to crash in seconds if you look at your phone.
So I thought it was really cool.
I think that's a great story. Yeah, we need more stuff like that. There's too many people sitting out there on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever and just looking for things to complain about, or people that say, if I could have gone back 100 years ago, I would have done this and this and this and this. And you know what? There's still things you can fix today. Get involved in your community. Get out there, do some good stuff for people. It doesn't take a ton of effort to do it.
No, and I guess just like case in point, our next guest, Chrystal Smith, she has put her money where her mouth is, and her time, treasures, and talents. And I think that we need more people like her in the world.
She's a great example of what we've just been talking about. She had a good idea and she just ran with it. She surrounded herself with the kind of people that could help her get it done. So let's take a little break and get her in here.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now here's Steve and Michelle.
All right, and we're back here with Chrystal Smith. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. We've met before, but it's been a while. So, and we've talked about that before on the podcast, that we got to come hang out at Foster Village one day and help. I'm holding up air quotes, help. But
I don't know if you were helping. Were you helping, or were you causing more issues?
I was in the way.
If there was a whole bin of clothes that were mislabeled and missized, that was me. That's the Mallett sizing.
Yeah. Now we know.
Yeah, that was me.
Culprit.
Chrystal, when did you move to Dripping Springs?
We moved to Dripping Springs in 2007. It was just a blind leap of faith. We were living in Southern California at the time. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Steve often says.
2007, you were before the rush, so you're good. It's the ones that have come in the last couple of years we got to talk to.
Yeah. You said you moved here on a whim. You had never even been to Texas.
Never even been to Texas. We put a deposit down on our house in High Point, and we're still in the same house, so it worked out.
Wow.
It was one of the best leaps of faith we've made.
That's great. And where were you in Southern California?
I grew up actually the big chunk of my childhood in Compton, so South Central Los Angeles. And then I
want to talk about that. Yeah. How was that?
It was definitely not
just
the whimsical childhood experience that I hope, for my children. But, it was bars on the windows. It was lots of crime. And
so what years would that have been?
It was. That's a great question. So late 80s, early 90s.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was before
The Rodney King. No, that was during
the
smack
Rodney
dab
King?
the Rodney King.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
So I lived there during the Rodney King riots. We
Oh, my gosh.
had to drive through to get to school. And so I have vivid
Wow.
memories of that. Yeah.
Did that, it probably did. Did it feel very dangerous to be there at that time, or did you not really know any difference?
Yeah, it did. It felt dangerous 24/7.
Yeah.
I actually recently found out that I lived less than a mile from Venus and Serena Williams at the same time, same age.
No
really?
way.
Darn it. I should have taken up tennis.
You should have. I'm sure they'd give you some pointers.
Now you just live in where the High Point Karens are. I live in High Point. I've lived in High Point since 2007 also. So yeah, there's probably not much difference.
Yeah. It's
Driving through.
different set of issues.
Yeah. That's a pretty big difference between Southern California, Compton, and Dripping Springs. How did you guys pick Dripping Springs?
I mean, it was definitely a God thing where we were living in a great suburb of Southern California before we moved here. I had met my husband in high school and fairly similar suburban area. And we were working multiple jobs and both just trying to figure out like, what is this we're doing here? Why are we here? It's so expensive and all the different factors of living there. And so we started looking online and realized other states were, had better
Way
quality
cheaper,
of life and
yeah.
way more affordable. And so we had heard good things about Austin, started looking in Austin, and somebody mentioned, oh, Dripping Springs has great schools. And so like a lot of folks, that was kind of the draw. We had 2 kiddos at the time who were 2 and 4. And yeah, once we saw online, we were like, okay, what did we have to lose?
That was the beginning of it. That was like right at the cusp of.
That's almost exactly my story, except I have 3 kids, but that was us too. We're like, well, let's go check out Austin, and Dripping Springs popped up because of the schools. And we came and visited at the only elementary at the time. This was 2003. And took a tour there with the principal, and we're like, yep, we're moving. We're selling out of California and coming this way.
Okay, so your fellow transplant. That
From
makes me
San
feel
Diego,
better.
yeah.
Okay.
Where were you living in California?
Thousand Oaks area.
Okay, yeah, that's a nice area.
Yeah.
That's where the Brady Bunch lived, right? Thousand Oaks.
Probably.
I never knew that.
She just made it up, Chrystal. She doesn't know.
If you say it with conviction,
Yeah,
that's what Steve
yeah.
says.
Where'd you go to college?
Cal State Northridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was where the big earthquake was.
Yep. We were there for the big earthquake.
Were you there for that?
I lived, in a suburb in Newbury Park.
Okay.
So we were not at the epicenter, but definitely felt it and had some damage.
Do you miss the earthquakes?
It was, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day where they were hanging something on the wall and I'm like, part of me still, you can't hang something over a bed. You can't hang something over, where.
Especially something heavy. You can't.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we were just talking about the difference of Texans don't think about that. That does not cross your mind of thinking of things falling off the walls.
Yeah. So earthquakes or thunderstorms? Which one do you like better?
The thunderstorms.
Yeah.
Why would you like an earthquake, Steve?
You know what? When they're
You are so weird.
No.
Why would
When
you-
they're not bad, it's actually kind of cool. When you know they're not bad, but I mean, you don't really know.
No,
until
I was in that. Well, it was like a small little earthquakes when we were in LA that last time, and it started shaking, and we were at this bar in Beverly Hills, and we all end up underneath the table. It's
Yeah.
like, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
This is
It's like,
absolutely
look at
terrifying.
all this gum up underneath this table
It's
here.
terrifying.
When on the Northridge run, I was living in San Diego, and we had this big field behind our house, and I thought I was in the middle of the night, and I thought because that was the one that was in the middle of the night, wasn't it, or was that the morning one? Anyway, I woke up from this dream, and I thought there's a freight train coming through our backyard. Why is there a freight train in our backyard? And it felt like that train rolled through our house. And by the time I realized it was an earthquake, I jumped up to go because we had the kids. And I got to the doorway and I could barely stand up, and then it was gone. But it was like, it was very surreal, isn't it?
Yeah. And you
were
was
a lot closer than us.
A really long one. It lasted felt like a freight train.
Yeah. Yeah. It just rolls through. It's wild. But,
Nope. Nope.
Well, you know what?
Nope.
A friend of mine, Ivan, came out here from California. This was 15 years ago, and we had one of those huge thunderstorms that comes through in the middle of the night, and he stayed in our house. And I mean, it was just one that stayed over the house for like 30 minutes, hail and the whole thing. And I thought, well, I better get up and check on the kids. And I came out, and he was standing in the doorway of the guest room, and he's like, "Is this normal?" Like, yeah, it's a Texas thunderstorm. It's okay.
Yep.
Right. And so you came to Dripping Springs because of the kids. What made you? So now you're doing child development. What made you get into that? And what is that?
Yeah. So I picked child development in college. Really, I've always just been drawn to children. That's just from the time I was a baby, taking care of babies. I love babies. I love kids. And having grown up in a pretty volatile household and just a lot of chaos and domestic violence and hard stuff, I was
protective. You're being a protective person.
And I just was so drawn to this idea of a healthier developmental home. And so really it was most valuable in my own parenting, and went on to teach parent education classes to court mandated parents. And that I was drawn to that idea of how can we get some tools into the hands of parents who just don't know better. They haven't been modeled it.
Court mandated is foster parents?
They were majority, custody battles or drug and alcohol rehab centers, that kind of thing. And so they were mandated by courts to take some parent education classes in order to get their kids out of foster care or to walk through different custody disputes, those kinds of things.
So would this be like maybe the grandmother and grandfather of a child?
Well, it's a family placement. No, it's like if you're an offending parent, right? And then you are mandated by the court to take classes on how to be a parent.
Right.
Because you suck as a parent.
Because you suck as a parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I will say, just it's in having learned child development, it's not always what we think of intuitively as good parenting. And so that was fascinating to me, of just kind of taking a more, this is what's developmentally appropriate, and this is why kids behave certain ways and at certain stages. And this is actually...
And the outbursts that they're taking on.
Right. That they aren't little monsters trying to dominate.
Sometimes,
I learned that firsthand when we got custody of our nephew, and it was a family placement. And I learned so much. So there were so many misconceptions about the foster care system out there. And I learned first and foremost how broken the system is.
Yes.
And how the Child Protective Service system is even broken even more, because it's segmented.
Segmented? Ooh, she made up a word.
Segmented. It's segmented into different areas throughout Texas. And it depends on, Lubbock runs theirs differently than Austin runs theirs, than down here, the Valley runs theirs. Right. And so the answers, even though we were here in Austin, the answers that we were getting from here were so different from what Lubbock was doing. And we would just shake our heads and go, how could you allow this? And literally... we got a call the day before and said, hey, your nephew is going to be placed. We know that we haven't seen him in months. We know that you're, his aunt. Would you take him? Mm-hmm. And 12 hours later, we had him in our car, and we didn't know what we were doing.
How old was he then?
He was 10, 11 years old, right around there. Very angry, disturbed kiddo, and it really took our family and shook it upside down.
Yeah,
totally 100%. So to talk, I know about the mandated parenting classes, because his mother was mandated to take these classes, mandated to take these classes. But it was eye-opening for me as well too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Chrystal, that you probably had to see some pretty tough situations for kids. How's that on your psyche? How do you deal with that? I mean, you got to see some kids that are in really bad positions.
See the worst part of humanity right there.
Yes. And, it was a healing journey for myself as well, because I related to a lot of it. And so there was that component of, okay, well, if I'm going to be doing this job, I probably need to supplement it with some therapy as I'm walking alongside these. And so that was really helpful. But the common thread was typically these parents would go back to, well, when I was a kid, this is what happened to me, or my parents did this. And so it was just this generational cycle of
emotional, physical, also
Right.
abuse looks and has many different forms.
Right. And, just maladaptive coping mechanisms and all kinds of things that can be prevented. So,
What's maladaptive coping mechanisms? What does that mean?
So, oh gosh.
If I had said that, you would say I made that word up.
Probably would have.
You're probably true.
Yeah. I mean, you could say turning to drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, or it could be, yelling when trying to communicate or hitting when frustrated.
Bad.
Well, I knew that, but I was, okay. So that's like when I give Michelle too much work, she eats those Dove bars like 6 at a time.
Yeah,
there you go.
100% don't.
I think that's adaptive, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not Mal.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's Steve.
Yeah.
That's why there's a Mal in Mallett.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I kind of lived that down.
So, Chrystal, when did you get the idea to start Foster Village, and what was the...
And were you a foster parent at the time?
Yes. So we jumped into the world of foster care in 2014. And my husband and I, we had our 3 boys were 11, 9, and 3 at the time. And we thought, what's one more kiddo, right?
Yeah.
Which yes, in hindsight, it was funny.
Yeah.
We had naive expectations going in, but we just felt called to open up our home. And as we went through the classes, just getting a better understanding from the kids' perspective, because I thought I understood the child welfare system. And as we went through the licensing process, it became clear that we just had just a sliver of an idea.
I love that you got classes.
Right.
I just got a phone call.
Oh gosh, yeah. And that is a whole other, the kinship, relative placements. I have a huge heart for that. We work with a lot of those families because, like you said, they get
thrown in.
Yeah, that's completely blindsided. So thankfully we did have classes, which were helpful. And during our time fostering, we were placed with an 8-month-old baby girl, and it was the, textbook scenario. We get a call and said yes, and 2 hours later, there's an investigator with this precious, terrified baby, and scrambling to get
supplies and everything else.
Yes, and thinking through, does she crawl? What do we need? What, and we don't get any of that information up front.
And you had boys.
Yes.
So you're like, what do I do with this girl? Yeah.
And the first thing I noticed was a lipstick kiss on her cheek. And so that was one of those critical moments of just a perspective shift of going from thinking of, rescuing this baby out of harm's way to, oh my gosh, some mom just kissed her baby goodbye. She has no idea where she is right now. Oof. And so started asking questions about her and does she know, who she's with or anything about us? And no, they just kind of, make the removal and follow up.
So they don't. So your child gets removed by the state, sounds like, and then they're placed in a foster home, but the parent doesn't know much about where the child ends up?
Not at first, unless they're going to relatives. So when it's a non-relative placement, they don't know anything at first. Yeah.
That's when I did this. I was a supervisor, facilitator. And so foster parents I was in their court order. So I would go shadow the foster parent or the parent, and the foster parent would bring the child. And so I would observe behaviors that the parent was with their child, how they smelled, how they looked, how they interacted, if they paid attention to them. And so sometimes that was in the Child Protective Services office, but sometimes it was outside. But a lot of times, when I was visiting with the parent, it was sometimes the first time they had seen the foster parent. And it was an interesting dynamic, where you have this mom who their child, baby girls, with somebody else, and they're like, looking them up and down. Some of them were aggressive, some were loving, and it was my job to try my best. It was about the child, not about the parents,
right?
Too. So, and a lot of times you don't know a lot about the children that you're being placed. They hand you a child, and you don't really know a lot about the history or medical history or anything else.
Yeah,
right?
You don't know about the medical history?
No. So we didn't know. I mean, it was really, it's sort of funny in hindsight. I mean, we just kind of put her on the ground and like, does she sit? Does she move? You know, like
unboxed her and said, what do we got here?
Yeah. And just assessing, has she had solids? Like, let's kind of feel out, you know, what her, developmental stages. We know her age, but that was even, I think, a guesstimate. So, so it was a whirlwind of getting to know you and paperwork, and you have to get kids into the doctor within 72 hours. You have to get appointments with all the legal parties. And so it's a whirlwind of appointments and expectations and requirements within those.
How much of the stuff you needed for her did you have at that point?
It was a scramble. Really? I mean, my husband, Nick, ran to, I don't think we even had CVS yet. So, yeah.
Probably not at that time.
He ran to HEB, and I think we got like 3 different kinds of formula, and we're like, well, let's see what, is she still on for it? You know, all those questions. So, and then during our time, so that was eye-opening of just the surreal nature of having a child you just met left with you and just figuring it out.
And that happens thousands of times a year in Texas.
Yep.
Or probably a day across the United States, too. These kids are coming in with trash bags or just nothing at all. That's how we got our nephew. We got him with nothing.
Wow.
Absolutely nothing. And then, you reach out to neighbors or friends or something like that. And so is that kind of like how this foster village idea came about? Like, okay, wait a minute. If I can't be the only one that's experiencing this issue.
Well, so there was that on the front end of just the basics, the essential items that we had to scramble to figure out. And thankfully, we did have friends show up and everybody kind of pulled together. And then from there, getting to know our daughter's birth mom, who had aged out of the system, and kind of like you described, our first meeting, she was not warm and fuzzy. I mean, she was kind of like, give me my baby and you. But I just had a heart for her, and just getting bits and pieces of her story. Thankfully, just so much compassion. So
she had been in the system too, is what you had said.
Yeah, okay. She aged out at 18 and was hit by a drunk driver and suffered a traumatic brain injury. And sadly, because she didn't have a support system, she didn't have safe people to turn to. And so she got caught up in some pretty dangerous networks and just did not have the capacity to safely raise a baby. And so we became that extension of family and champions for reunification, whatever that looked like. And ultimately, she asked for us to adopt our daughter under the condition that we keep in touch and she gets to be part of her life as well. And so we were happy to accommodate that. And so
your first placement was a permanent placement.
Yes, which is pretty rare.
Is she the only child you ever fostered then? Or have you fostered some since then?
We did a lot of respite care. So we had a little over a dozen kids that we had for, 2+ weeks, some for just a few days, some for a week. But yeah, she was our only technical placement. And then during our time, so getting to know our daughter's birth mom and then also doing a lot of respite care for other foster families, it was this, there's these teens that we're completely forgetting about and all these missed opportunities to prevent the cycle from continuing. And then there's all these foster parents that are just absolutely burnt out. They are feeling isolated. Everybody's talking about feeling alone. Nobody gets it. And so it was just that combination of there's nothing at placement that, you're scrambling to get everything. There's kids who are just being bumped around throughout the system and have no healthy support network. And then there's the caregivers and foster families who are saying that they're isolated, they're alone, they don't feel like people get it.
I was reading about, since I was kind of in that world, not only as a placement, but also in working in the system, is that there are over 30,000 kids, and the number's probably, a little bit higher from whatever I found, but over 30,000 kids in Texas in foster care. And the highest percentage of those kids are 0 to 2 years of age. But the second highest percentage of kids, the next biggest jump, is 14 to 17. Such a jump in the ages.
Yeah. So the respite care then is somebody that's fostering probably a teenager, which would be really tough. You don't have a relationship. Even when you have a relationship with a teenager, they're tough, right? When you're mom and dad, they're tough. So you don't have a relationship with them. So the respite is maybe the person that's fostering wants to go on vacation, and you take that child for a week or 2 weeks so that they can go and enjoy some me time.
Right. So vacations or just even a break to catch their breath. We would have some kids that we watched just while a parent was sick or had to go to work, or there's just a lot of requirements for foster parents to have approved babysitters. They can't just send the kids to grandma's.
What kind of requirements? And these are state mandated requirements?
They are, it depends on the agency. So each agency has specific requirements, but yeah, there's some minimum standards.
Background checks. And so like, you take in a foster care child, like if we had Christian, we couldn't just have anybody come over and stay. So we had to have, even though they literally just gave him to us, we were like, why didn't you check us?
Yeah.
Everybody else has to, everybody that's going to give us the respite care has to check. That's what I'm saying. The system is so, that's exactly right. There's zero logic when it comes to the system.
Yeah. And it's always going to be a broken system. It's a broken solution to a broken reality. And yes, it can improve. And that is for sure a goal, but the state's never going to make a good parent.
That's a great one. There's the title
right there. If you could fix one thing, just one thing, if you had a magic wand, one thing in this broken system, what would it be? What is the most highest priority thing that you see that the state of Texas needs to fix?
Oh, gosh. To narrow it down. Well, so I would say this. I would say that to me, and our slogan at Foster Village is community beyond the system, because I think there, from a legislative standpoint, from a policy standpoint, there's so many things that can be better. And however, I think the solution is ultimately where the community steps in. And, so like my daughter's birth mom, for example, had she had a relationship with neighbors, had she had a healthy relationship with teachers and people in her, safe adults in her life who had stepped in and said, hold on, we don't need to keep moving this child around. Right. She just needs some healthy, stable adults to get her plugged in with all the resources that she's needing right now, it would have looked really different. And so I think that's that wraparound from the community to say, hold on, these are our kids. This is not
just to have more resources for the community. I heard something the other day that just blew me away. I knew that when kids age out, when they're 18, they're kind of on their own for the most part. There are resources, college and things like that, but for the most part, they need to figure it out. They're on their own. That some of these placements, they will take them to the homeless shelter, and that is the highest number of where sex trafficking is happening in that little age group of kids, girls that are coming out of the foster care system, and they're being sex trafficked.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's scary to me. It's terrifyingly scary to me.
Yeah, so the majority of sex trafficking victims have some history of child welfare involvement, foster care involvement.
So I want to make sure I understand that. So you're fostering a child, and they turn 18. They can choose to stay with you or not. Is that? Can they say, hey, I want to continue to stay with you even though I'm not in the system anymore?
So technically the way it works is they turn 18 and they're no longer wards of the state. There's some extended foster care options, but once they're no longer a ward of the state, let's say they're with a foster family, it would take some hoops for that foster family to jump through for them to say, no, we want this child to be able to stay with us. So
yeah.
That's really
that's sobering.
Well, they're an adult, right? Mm-hmm. But they can't decide.
But think about they're in school, right? They have plans, and there's foster families that they have other foster children under their belt, and so now this child's 18 years old.
So they would need to pass a background check and all the things required of having a licensed foster home.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So what is the best part of what you think Foster Village does for the community of Dripping Springs?
Well, I think Dripping Springs is the just ultimate example of what it can look like. And, that's how we've been able to scale this, is just kind of like, look at this community that has done exactly what the vision was, that God gave me of just the community coming alongside these kids and families. And so I would say, oh gosh, I missed your question now. I got so excited about Dripping Springs.
Like, what is the best part you think of having the community? I guess support.
How has Dripping Springs supported you in this endeavor?
Yes. So to that point, just being that village that,
takes a village.
Yes. And as cliche as it sounds, it's so true, because it really, everybody's coming together with unique skills, unique talents, time, treasure, all the different things, and saying, this is what I can contribute to make sure that these kids have their needs met. And it really does work. We're seeing, 98% of the families that we serve have said that it's been a sustaining factor in their ability to continue caring for the kids in their home, which is really the goal, because historically over half of foster parents were quitting within the first year. And so to say that the majority are now saying this is a sustaining factor, this is keeping us going, shows that it really works. And
so for somebody that has never heard of Foster Village, give us the elevator speech for that. Well, you work at Foster Village. What is that?
Yeah. So we equip families with those essential items. When they get a placement, they are able to fill out a quick request form on our website, and right off the bat, we connect with them to get them set up with beds, car seats, clothing. We have all those brand new items stocked at our resource center so they can come and pick out the items themselves, or we have loads of on-call volunteers who will deliver within hours. And that's huge, because a lot of the burnout and frustration in foster care is there's so much red tape, there's so many hoops to jump through, everything takes a really long time. You have to work your way through, the bureaucracy of everything. So to just have that direct line of support is huge. So that's what happens at our resource centers, is equipping families with those essential items. And then we connect them with ongoing support. So we have support gatherings. We do various trainings. We have some therapeutic support in the home, where we have staff who are highly trained in trauma, and they can give the parents the tools on how to navigate tough behaviors. And just we do what we call Seize the Play Day. We want to bring play back into childhood for these kids, because a lot of them just don't have the experience to be kids. And so we love opportunities to give, kids time to play.
What a great thing you've done. And the original idea that you had when that little nugget came in your head, is this what you imagined, or did you imagine something bigger or smaller? What was the original idea like?
Oh gosh, I would say, I had this pull of this, I knew that there was something big that God was pulling us into. I mentally thought it was small. We were just going to have, maybe this storage unit where we could have things ready and we could serve, a small number of folks. And within that first year, out of storage units, we served over 600 kids. And I'm like, okay, I think we struck a nerve.
Yeah, you have.
I think that people don't realize also that not only are you connecting foster parents with other foster parents in that support system, but I think that was what was really lacking in our situation, is connecting those foster kids with other foster kids and realizing that they're not alone and they have a support system as well. Because, in the grand scheme of things,
I could see that.
Yeah, people, it touches your heart. You're a foster parent, but then it's not really about you. It's about that child. And to have, like when you said you're equipping, you're connecting, and you're advocating for these parents, but you're also doing that, and it's connecting, equipping, advocating for these children as well, where when we're working in a broken system, they need to have a voice.
Right.
And it's something, it just really touches my heart, because something just struck a nerve with me when you were talking about respite care. I remember the aha moment for me when I have an 11-year-old daughter, her and her nephew, or my nephew, they were the same age. And I think we had him a couple of days at this point, and I went to the grocery store and I was like, what's your favorite stuff? I mean, although we had known him prior, but I knew what he wanted, but it was a different scenario, why he was pulled out of where he was pulled out of. And I was at the grocery store, and Kendall called me and said, Mommy, you need to come home right now. Whereas I would have left Kendall alone for an hour to go to HEB. You need to come home right now. Christian is tearing things up. I don't know. And I'm like, the thought occurred to me, is like, I left an 11-year-old with another 11-year-old that I just pulled it. Like, what was I doing?
An 11-year-old you didn't really know.
I didn't know. I didn't.
You knew you had experience.
Yeah. I mean, I knew him, but like now understanding, I guess through lots of therapy, the trauma and the abuse that he had been through was like, what was I doing? Like, it was a mind shift for me. And I felt all alone on this island. I felt my husband was out of town. I felt like I had nobody, and that was really hard for me. I couldn't, when they said, if you have somebody babysit, you have to have them background check. Well, here I had an 11-year-old girl that I'm going to the grocery store, and now I have to go hire a babysitter. It has to be background checked.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was, I wish that I had known something about this, because I felt like he needed it more probably than I did too.
Right.
He struggled a lot.
Yeah. And the assumption is, we take a child out of a hard environment where there's chaos and abuse and neglect, and we put them into a safe and loving environment, and they will act accordingly. And
that's what I thought. I just need to love him more.
Yeah. Well,
I need to love him more.
Yeah. That's, I think, the general assumption. However, you mentioned trauma. When you factor trauma in, it's a whole different ballgame. And there is, not just real safety, there's felt safety, and there's brain development that isn't quite, where it needs to be yet. And so that's where that therapeutic piece comes in, that is not necessarily intuitive, that's so important and exhausting, really, as a caregiver, because it's like, gosh, why are you not acting according to the environment?
I became very jaded on the system, and then that's his therapist at the time said, hey, look, there's a real need in Hays County for supervised facilitators. I think you would be great at this. Recommended me. And I became I had my own business, and I was a supervisor, facilitator, and I had hundreds of kids. I was I was, always on the stand, and I was always in Judge Henry's court and family court all the time on stand. And there was just one case for me that just did it. And I just
couldn't do it anymore.
I said, I can't, it hurts my heart. And at the same time, I still had my nephew, right?
Wow.
So, and I just saw where these foster parents were burning out, like what you said, and my CPS officers, like I would have a case where this poor kid had 8, 9 CPS workers, and it's like, where'd they go? Oh, they quit. They quit. The burnout is so high.
It is. Yeah. It's, I think average 2 years is kind of what most social workers in the system are sticking around for, which does not make for great quality. And that's definitely a quality over quantity issue, where we need those quality workers who are sticking with it.
Yeah. Well, and so now, you're hyper involved. You have a gala that you guys just had. What was it, weekend before last?
Yes. It feels like I've lost all sense of time now.
Are you strictly donation driven?
Yes. So we are funded by individuals, the community, our fundraisers. We do some private grants from foundations, but we are not dependent on state funding, which allows us the flexibility to be super responsive and fast and nimble in that, which is awesome.
Cut the red
that's
tape.
Huge. Yeah. Cut the bureaucracy. Do you know how many families or how many children you've helped since you started this?
So we just crunched some numbers we have an affiliate program where we now have foster village locations throughout the U.S. So we have our 2 locations here, one in Dripping and one in North Austin. And we got a lot of interest from other communities nationwide. This is what we need in our community. And so thankfully, over time, we've been able to build a really cool, almost like franchise model, where each one's a separate 501c3, but they use our model, our branding, our marketing materials, and we collaborate on everything pretty much on a daily basis. So all of our locations nationwide, we've served over 15,000 kids since 2016.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a great example for people to look up to, how they can improve their community.
The location here in Dripping Springs, are you primarily serving Hays, Blanco? Do you have like a certain kind of boundary that you are serving?
Yep. So the counties that we serve, and, we'll get families from Travis County, from Caldwell, but the majority being Hays for our Dripping Springs Resource Center. But Hays, Caldwell, and Williamson and Travis are our main ones here in Austin. And yeah, we sometimes make exceptions for families who are in the rural areas that are just needing, because it's lacking in especially those rural areas.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of the kids here in Dripping Springs that you've been able to help kind of circle back around and are now involved in Foster Village? Have you had any kind of success stories like that?
Yeah, oh gosh, I have so many, we call them our kids, like,
Oh, that's great.
that teens that come to mind where, they started out as emergency placements with foster families, and we were able to just kind of get connected with them over time. And one who ended up becoming an intern for us, and she is a teen mom. And so now she's, we're helping her with the parenting side of things and getting her feet under her and getting
Wow, that's great.
a good job and all those kinds of things. And then another young lady who comes to mind who she, when we met her, she said, well, I don't technically exist, was the story that she had for herself. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, I was adopted by my grandma, but she died, and her birth certificate she didn't have. And then she couldn't get an ID because her legal name didn't match with any identification she had, and she couldn't access any of her critical documents. And so without an attorney, she had no way of getting legal
she didn't have the money to hire an attorney.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And so we had a local dripping attorney who helped her out and did what needed to be done. And she confirmed, like, this, you needed an attorney to navigate this. Wow. And so she was able to get an ID, and with an ID, she could get a job and she could get a driver's license. And she is flourishing. She's just doing awesome.
And without that, she could have just faded off into the system somewhere and had a really rough life.
Yeah, she had no legs. There was she was stuck.
Wow.
Yeah.
What keeps you up at night?
Oh gosh, it definitely depends on the day.
You're looking at him right there. What keeps me up at night? Right there.
But she keeps coming to work. I don't know why.
Yeah, it breaks my heart to think about kids that feel alone in whatever their circumstances are, because I think that's just an easy, as adults, I mean, with the few exceptions, we love kids, and that's something that we can all agree on. It's, our kids and our community matter. And I think sometimes we are disconnected from the kids who need that the most.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What's something you learned about yourself as you went through this journey?
I would say, I didn't necessarily see myself as a leader or entrepreneurial or, somebody who builds a community.
Did you think of yourself sort of as a worker, like a worker bee kind of thing? Like, I'll get plugged in and I'll do things. But you've been, your leadership is huge. You've made a whole community.
She's led by
go
grace
in one direction,
and by her heart. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think in hindsight, I am good at solving problems and seeing, the solutions. And so that is something I definitely learned about myself, is that I am a problem solver, a visionary. And, when I see a solution to a problem, I can't turn it off, for better or worse.
Till it gets done.
Yeah.
Are you a list maker?
I am. Yeah. I'm a list checker. Like, that's the motivation. Like, I want to check.
I'm the maker. You're the checker. There you go.
I'm a list maker, and there's something, I don't know how that works in my brain, but yeah, I'll write it down, and it's like I'm just stuck on it until I can put that checkbox.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were just so busy. Your mind just rolls. But then I read something on your bio about your guilty pleasure, and I want to know is, where is your favorite happy hour? And in your set of supplies for these kids and resources and car seats, is there a whole wine section at Foster Village that's
for the parents?
Right.
For after
We
hours.
need to add that. That's a new program.
sponsored by Specs?
Yeah. I will say, so the first few years of launching Foster Village, it was all consuming. It was all I did. It was all our family did. And I have no regrets, and I'm grateful for that. And I don't know how we did it. And we hit a point, I don't know, a year or so ago where I'm like, I need to do something fun. I haven't done anything fun in a long time. And so my word for 2020, I try to come up with a word for every year. And in hindsight, it was not the best word for 2020. It was play. And so we all know how that went. Yeah. But I was committed. I'm like, we're going to find some fun things to do. So we were able to start, my husband and I, consistent date nights. And so we just do happy hours. And the irony is he doesn't drink. So I have a designated driver.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, so it works out well for me. But yeah, so we've gone to different places around Austin. And you could go to like, Uchi and have an affordable happy hour meal there where we wouldn't typically go. Cause
I know it's happy hour prices. And we just went to one on Friday night. It's called Nightcap on 6th Street. And it was happy hour. And I had iced tea, but everything else was $10. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Yeah. I just ate for $40.
Yeah. I'll have to add that to
It's really list. Good. It's really good.
And then she complained and they gave her $100 gift card.
No, that was at ABBA or ABBA.
One of those places.
Yeah.
Chrystal, what was your word for 2022?
I stopped doing words after.
No, did you? After play, that killed it. Pandemic killed it.
Well, no, I think I'm just committed to seeing that one through. I need to check that off. So I might be able to check it off after this year.
Do you have any bigger plans for Foster Village besides, you've gone nationwide now. So, I can't believe you haven't been featured on Good Morning America or something like that. You need to write a book.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I
encourage you. Write a book.
I would love to do that someday. I need the energy, but I love to write, and there's a lot of content. So
maybe almost even like a how-to guide for foster parents. That would just be okay if they're acting out. It's not as simple as this, but okay, on page 47 it says maybe try this, this, and this is probably why they're doing that. I'd be like, or just take the book and just bang it on something.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to ask you about the allergen-free bakery that you helped found. So how did you come up with the idea for that?
Yeah, so all three of our boys, we eventually found out, have food allergies. I discovered sensitivity to gluten and dairy and just kind of all the things. I have a lot of autoimmune issues. And so, this was 2010, trying to figure out how to feed kids with cutting out gluten, dairy, eggs. And there was other things at the time so it was frustrating, discouraging.
Oh, I bet.
And then having a class birthday party where it's like, okay, well, and Johnny can't have peanuts and Sally can't have that. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, we're doing 25 different treats. Yeah. And so I, again, saw a problem and
a solution.
Yeah. Like surely there can be a way to figure out some recipes that work for everybody. And so we just started experimenting, and it became a fun hobby for my boys and I to work in the kitchen and come up with different things. So we came up with some good stuff and started selling with neighbors, connected with another neighbor. And we turned it into what we thought would be, and at the time you couldn't sell food out of your home kitchen.
Yeah,
so
commercial kitchen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we rented some commercial kitchen space, and it just snowballed.
Wow.
And
were all your recipes, you guys came up with them yourself, or were you finding books, or where were you coming up with the recipes?
Yeah, at the time it was our recipes. Yeah. So
probably at the time, the only book out there was the, what was her name? It was Jerry Seinfeld's wife. I can't think of her name right now.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But even that, so the concept was top 8 allergen free. So just cutting out all the main ones, and it was not nearly as well, as accessible at the time. Thankfully it's gotten much better, but so that's, I think, where I discovered this entrepreneurial spirit of like, I actually have a pretty good sense for what people will want.
Yeah. Well, the most important part of that is that stuff good?
Yeah.
The bakery items.
It's not sugar free. So
yeah. Oh, so it's sugar. Okay. Yeah. I was like, I don't know what gluten is, but I know it's very yummy. That's all I know about it.
When he talks about me eating 6 Dove bars, that is totally not me. That is him projecting.
That's me. Yes, I was projecting.
I will not.
True.
I'm not a big chocolate person.
What do you do when I frustrate you?
What do I do when
you come hide in here in the studio?
I do. I have a secret Michelle podcast that I do. I'm just pretend like I don't know how to use the board, but I really do.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice and soundproof. So.
Yeah. She sits in here and screams, and nobody can hear her.
You don't frustrate me, Steve. Every day I have a smile on my face.
I try. Actually, I try to do it. Chrystal, what kind of advice you're a very busy mom. What kind of advice do you have for other busy moms?
That's a great question. I would say just try not to miss it. Today is actually my oldest son's 20th birthday, which is wild because I'm like, how was yesterday 20 years ago? Because it feels like yesterday he was a baby. But I'm so glad that I have vivid memories of him at pretty much every stage and all of our kids. And so even though it's, that saying of the days are long, but the years are short, it's so true. And so just keeping that in mind during those days when you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot change another diaper. I cannot deal with another fussy baby, but just soaking up those little moments as much as possible because you're going to cling to that when they're off wanting to do their own thing.
I was just going to say, because one day those times are gone.
And they're mean and they become adults and they don't call their mom Tate.
Well, exactly. But you miss it. You miss the, I remember when I was, when my kids were young and I was working my butt off all the time building this business, and they'd come in and want to sit on my lap or go throw a football or something. And I'd be like, I'll do that in a little bit. And I never got to it. And now I totally regret that. I missed it. And you never get it back.
Told Tate the other day, I said, don't get so worked up on trying to build a life that you stop trying to live your life.
That should be for everybody right now. I mean, because we are nose to the grindstone all the time, get more done, make more money, and life just flies by.
And call your mom.
And call your mom. Yeah. Chrystal, what's next for you? What do you think? What do you think's going to come down the road for you?
Well, more happy hours because we need to
Good.
But yeah, I hope to see our mission continue to grow and deepen, and that's really important. As a community has been so generous and walking alongside us and pouring into this mission. I am committed to the quality of the work we do, and we want to see sustainable results and not necessarily just take a Band-Aid approach. So it's exciting to be able to do that deeper dive with families and say, hey, we're going to throw all the tools at this and make sure that this is where it stops. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about seeing it grow in other communities and always pointing back to dripping and saying like, this is the model. Yes. This is the community that has it down and this is where the bar is. So it's pretty cool.
I think that this community is very blessed in the sense that you have shared your time, your treasures, and your talents with us, and not only Dripping Springs, but just, the nationwide that you're able to spread this love and your vision and your idea to help the unserved kiddos in the United States.
How can the community continue to support you? What can we do to help you with your further mission?
Yep. So there's multiple ways to get plugged in. If you go to our website, fostervillageaustin.org, there's a page for giving, there's a page for volunteering to get involved. As we get close to the holidays, we have lots of in-kind donation drives. A lot of organizations give toys for the holidays. So kids in foster care tend to get tons of toys at Christmas. So we do Christmas Beyond the Toys, where we're focusing on how do we help families who are struggling to keep the lights on? How do we help with food insecurity? Those kinds of things.
Okay.
So lots of opportunities. We try to make it really easy to get involved. That's really a rare thing in the child welfare space because not many people want to call up Child Protective Services and say, hey, I want to volunteer. So we try to be that easy access point, bridge between the kids and the community.
Oh, that's great. The last question I have for you is, what the heck is a piradoodle?
Oh my gosh, he's the best dog in all the world.
I've never heard of that before. Yeah. Did I say it right? Piradoodle?
Yes.
It's a mix between a
Great Pyrenees.
I think I've seen you guys walk him around the neighborhood before.
He's hard to miss. He's kind of the size of a pony.
Yeah.
And we So 2020, my year of play, we're the end of the year. Everybody's exhausted. We're just like, oh my gosh. And my daughter had been asking from Santa for a puppy every Christmas. And we're just like, here's a stuffed puppy. Here's a nicer stuffed puppy. And she'd be disappointed every time. And we're like, oh gosh. And finally it was that 2020, we had 2 golden retrievers. One, they're both getting up there in age, and one had recently passed. And so I was like, you know what, let's do it. Let's do the puppy. And so it was only a few weeks before Christmas. And so I just started searching for local breeders with puppies. And thankfully we lucked out because he is just the absolute best.
Is he one of those ones that doesn't shed?
He doesn't shed much. He sheds a little bit, but
Okay.
yeah, he's just
What's his name?
for Elliot.
Elliot.
And that was
Elliot,
the name
that's
that
great.
the breeders had given him. And my daughter, she said, well, I want him to have the same name he got at birth, like me. Which,
Oh.
yeah. So
Oh.
we're like, Elliot
That's
it is. Yeah. So
Wow.
he's a fancy Elliot, big pony dog.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
come see Elliot
Pony
when I
dog.
see him walk by the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super sweet.
Well, Chrystal, I want to thank you for being a great example for our community as to how people can give back. And I encourage everybody that's listening to look to how they can improve our community like you have.
Oh, well, thank you. It is just a humbling honor to be part of this community, and so extremely grateful for the many ways everybody continues to pour into the work we're doing.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chrystal Smith.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening.
If you have comments or feedback, please email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallett and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Please follow us and leave a review.
Thanks again for listening.